Hi, this is your Swapnil Bharti and welcome to another episode of State of Energy. We are here in Paris for LF Energy Summit and today we have with us Lemaire Jean-Etienne, Substation Configuration Automation at RTE. First of all, thanks for joining me today. And since you are associated with the CoMPAS project, so I want to start with just a quick overview of what is CoMPAS project.
So CoMPAS project, in fact, has two targets. So the first one is to provide a free and user-friendly tool so that a user can easily configure their own substation on one hand, and on the other hand is to provide an automated process so that we can configure automatically a substation. So this is two main target of CoMPAS project. Yeah.
Can you talk about the kind of not exactly inner workings, but of the substation, what's going on in there, so that we can understand the scope of how CoMPAS project helps there?
So in the past, in fact, substation were made a lot of wire. So every information between functions were exchanged thanks to wire. So nowadays, most of substations are configured manually, and it takes a lot of time. And because all this wired is done thanks to file, and is described into file. And now we want to automatize this configuration so that people and engineers stop losing time with building huge configuration files. There's some main background, in fact, in the substation configuration.
And then we look at, of course, today's world, manual is not going to work. Mm-hmm. So talk about what are the challenges associated. That's where the CoMPAS project comes and helps them.
So in fact, we want that engineer who design the substation design only the functions and the requirements of the substation. And then automatically the configuration will be generated. So engineers have just are quite assisted so that they can get a list of equipments that would fill their requirements. And once they have chosen the equipments, automatically the configuration will be done through an automated process. And for cases which are not done by typicals configuration, in fact, we'll also provide a UI thanks to OpenSCD so that users can manually this time handle this kind of special cases, because substations are not all identical.
Are we talking about substation within, either the companies, or we are talking about regional, because when we talk about Europe, there are different countries also. So when you say they're not identical, what are we talking about here?
Even inerties are not identical, but we wanted to make a kind of framework. So we can say that these typical system versions, and we have just to pick up this typical system version and apply on given substation. And then thanks to configuration settings, which are defined by the engineer, automatically the configuration will be built. So it requires a kind of a standardized framework, which is given as a part by the norm, the IC norm, but not only. We have another framework to be compliant so that the configuration can be done automatically.
Can you talk about how CoMPAS makes it easier so that it doesn't really matter whether the substation is identical or not?
Because in fact, in CoMPAS, we are starting from the business needs, so which is defined through the SCL format, the substation SCL format. So we are describing that. And the automated process will pick up some informations in this file and automatically generate the full configuration file of the substation. It is the target. And if some cases are not handled, we'll have to do some manual things. But first of all, you're right. We have to respect. So the substation has to respect the format, the framework, as well as the equipments. So we cannot do automated process thanks to any equipment. So we have a framework to be fulfilled before we start this process.
Can you talk about how much CoMPAS is being used either at RT in production or by other TSOs or DSOs?
CoMPAS is still a project, so it's not used in production right now. We expect to have a go live next year. So we are on the way, and we hope that we'll reach this target. I hope, but it's very important for us because, in fact, engineer cannot have not the knowledge to do this manual configuration. It requires so many knowledge that can be handled by engineer right now, on RT side at least.
The project is part of LF Energy.
Yeah.
Can you talk about of course, RT is involved, who other is involved with the project? Just give us an overview of the project.
So in fact, the CoMPAS project involves RT and Alliander also. So Alliander is more focused on the designing of UI and also manual process inside OpenSCD tool. So they are developing functions in this tool. And on RT side, we are focused on the SCD automaton process. And also we are providing a lot of code so that we can ensure that. And we expect one day to enable the usage of this automated process directly in OpenSCD tool thanks to plugin, for example. So it is a target.
Can you talk about what are the core areas that you folks are working on right now on this project?
Currently, in fact, we have an automated process. So we are developing step by step this automated process. So we expect to finalize the development of this process by the end of this year. And then we'll have to make it work and to ensure that it's working in all cases. So it will require a lot of tests because there is a lot of test cases for the fully automated process. And the next step, so we are, for example, working on grouping functions. So inside the substations, more technical, but we expect also to develop the configuration of the gateway because it's not yet done, but it's on the way also. And I think we'll have more or less finalized the tool. We have also the topological substation settings. So that is to say, when engineer defines the topology of the substation, we have to take into account this topology so that we do the right data flow inside the configuration files. Because topology and it's very linked to data flow inside the configuration. So this is the three main steps which is remaining into the roadmap for the end of this year. And then we'll have other things to develop because there is a lot of to do. Because currently we are working on small substation because it's easier for us to work on small substation. But I think starting from next year, we'll have bigger substation with a lot of line feeder, transformer, and so on. So the configuration will getting more and more complex due to the scope of the substation.
What happens with a lot of open source projects, you create a project to solve one problem, but when people start using it, suddenly they find that it can solve their problem, which you did not think about. Mm-hmm. So, but where we are sitting right now, can you talk about the scope of this project? So
the scope of this project currently is to handle, I would say, a given scope of function. So it is done for small substation right now. But OpenSCD, so I talk about automated process, so it can apply on bigger substation, but we have to make it work on bigger substation because it's getting more complex data flow. We have to review all the cases to make the data flow exchange between functions because we have new functions for bigger substation. But for OpenSCD, as it is mainly manual inputs inside the tool, it can be used as well for bigger substations. So there is no limitation, I would say, regarding the scope for manual tools.
Lemaire, thank you so much for sitting down with me and giving an update on CoMPAS project.
Yeah, with pleasure.
Yeah, and I would love to chat with you when there's some progress made to the project or the project is ready for production. So thanks for those updates. Thank you.